These baboons, they started eating food from a resort. They knew when the food was coming, so they just wandered down to this dump, and then they would basically essentially fight over dominance of the dump, and a few strong, powerful males had control over that until they got sick.
So this was the troop next door to mine that had this tourist lodge in their territory and thus had a garbage dump. And in my troop, a couple of kilometers away, the males from my troop who were going to eat the garbage were the most aggressive, least socially affiliated guys. So this is going on for a couple of years, and then there turns out to be a tuberculosis outbreak among the baboons over there because there was tubercular meat in the lodge, and a meat inspector was being bribed, and all sorts of horrifying things. And it basically kills all the baboons in that troop, and it kills all of my baboons who had been going over there every morning for food. So now what you have is half the number of males as usual. So you got a 2-to-1 female to male ratio, which is pretty atypical for a baboon troop. And the key thing is the baboons who are left are the nice guys. They're socially affiliated. They're the least aggressive. What's baboon aggression about? You're having a bad day. You find somebody smaller and weaker to take it out on. They weren't dumping on weaker animals. They weren't having displaced aggression. And it turned into, just to be technical here, like a much nicer troop. They had much higher rates of grooming, less aggression, more sitting in contact. Male baboons would groom each other, which you don't see male baboons grooming each other in this troop. They would. So in and of itself, that's totally fascinating. So, okay, you get rid of 50% of the males who are the jerks, and you have a commune there going on. 10 years later, all the males who were there during the TB outbreak, who survived it and ushered in sort of the commune, they're long gone. So who are the new males? Male baboons pick up at puberty, they leave their home troop, and they go wandering and join some adult troop somewhere else and spend the rest of their life there heading up the hierarchy. In other words, by 10 years later, all the males in this troop who were still being less aggressive and more socially affiliative, they had all grown up someplace else in some other troop and transferred as adolescents into this troop, and somehow or other learned, even though they grew up in the normal big bad baboon world out there, somehow they learned, we don't do crap like that here, cut it out. And it takes about 6 months. Once these new males show up, for them, they're less subject to resident males dumping on them because there's less of this displacement aggression. Females who are getting dumped on less by males and thus are much more relaxed, lower stress hormone levels, are more willing to be affiliated with them. You're some new adolescent male and you show up in your typical baboon troop, and it's like 80 days on the average before some female grooms you. In this troop, it was like 3 days. Because everybody's much more relaxed because no one's being miserable to each other. And it turns out you take a jerky adolescent male, because these guys were just as jerky as any transfer males were into any of the neighboring troops, and like you treat them nicer, and they kind of calm down over the next 6 months. And literally what you had, what social anthropologists would be forced to define as cultural transmission. Non-genetic transmission of a style of behavior from one generation to the next. This was culture being transmitted, a culture of high affiliation and less aggression.